Welcome to Breaking Biscuits, the experience. Where today we're in part two of our discussion of leading yourself. So let's just dive into this. Well, Mark, welcome back to Breaking Biscuits. And last week we talked about this concept of leading ourselves, and it was from an internal perspective, obviously. And kind of the thesis was that if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. That was kind of the general theme. And this week we were going to follow up with that. I kind of want to start, today maybe with a question. But when I think about self-leadership and some of the behaviors, the core behaviors, some of these we got written down from last week, but it was like calmness under pressure, clear communication, consistency in words and actions, showing care and accountability. And all those things are wonderful and great. But as I kind of was reflecting on this subject today, I realized, like, I just kind of looked inward and looked at my own life. And I realized, like, I've been in a leadership role since, really since I was 18 years old of some form. And as life went, I've been in executive leadership for over 20 years in business, leadership in the home. I've had great successes, great failures, but at the end of the day, it was still all leadership. And there's just moments, just to be really transparent and honest with the audience. And I feel like a lot of men might feel this way. There's moments where I just feel like I don't want to lead anymore. Like, I'm just tired of being in charge. I'm tired of the responsibility. I'm tired of the person people look to fix the problem. I'm tired of having to come up with solutions and trying to juggle everything in life. And there's times and days it just feels like too much. And I guess my question to you to start this conversation today is, and let me word it a different way. I think a lot of men would say what I do doesn't matter. Like, I'm trying to lead, but what I'm doing doesn't matter, doesn't make a difference. So you get discouraged of wanting to lead and wanting to do the things that I kind of described at the very beginning. So my question is, when we find ourselves in that place, how do we lead ourselves out of that pit of just feeling stuck, or like, doesn't matter, I'm overwhelmed, is this ever going to change, is it going to get any better? I know you've kind of had these same emotions in your life as a man as well.
Oh yeah. Used to always say I'd rather burn out than rust out, and now I like to rephrase that. But yeah, not only the feeling not only being tired and having too much to do, too many responsibilities, or too much to watch over, there's also that component for me of it just doesn't seem like it's making a difference. And that's discouraging. I think, I would hope most healthy men would want to, they're up for the task as long as they can see productivity and progress. Most men will stay the course. But I think the hardest part is navigating these seasons, which we all have them. I was talking to a client today and said, I feel like you're in a seasonal transition phase of life. You are transitioning from wintertime, where it looks like nothing's alive, nothing's going on, no matter what you do. But the truth is, the roots tap into the source. And tap into spring, and spring brings joy and happiness to everybody. The sun's shining, the birds are singing, and all that. But sometimes you get stuck in that season, and I'm sure we've all done it, or feel like I'm just too tired. And I don't think it's physical exhaustion, but I think your body is reflecting,
Respond. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You talk a lot about that. What's like your body does tell you what's going on sometimes, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, your nervous system is part of that, and discouragement brings tiredness. Um, Frustration brings tiredness. So yeah, it's a real thing. How your body responds to some of these challenges, and I like what you called a season, because I think that is what it is. It's temporary, but in the moment it feels like it's permanent. So we have to find a way to get our permanent state, or our permanent thought process, and realizing that it's just for a season. And how it really, how do we encourage ourselves through it?
I talk to myself a lot. I'll tell you that. And I talk to people every week of my life for hours on end about entering into a season and not knowing how to transition, and therefore being stuck in it. And they lose their hope and their way and their guidance and their perseverance. Stuck in the season. Now it becomes a cycle when it was intentionally just supposed to be a season. And
That's good.
seasons are important because we were looking out my window, me and my client, they came to my house, and I said, that tree right there looks deader than a doornail. But you know what? It's just coming out of its winter season. You come back here in 2 months, that thing will be alive. Because I said it's alive right now. And I said sometimes I like wintertime in some ways, because no one goes out, everything's dormant, but the life source runs deeper. So yeah, a lot of people they don't transition their season because they get stuck in it, and it becomes a cycle. Then it becomes a way of life. Then like that disappointment, frustration turns into depression. Now you're in a cycle. You can't move out of it. Because then you start telling yourself this story about no matter what I do,
Yeah.
we're pretty we do the works of the devil. Jesus may have destroyed him, but he didn't destroy it in us. We do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
Accuser of the brethren lives right
Right.
here.
Yeah. It made me think, if we use God's creation as an example, so, and the tree that you gave as an example, so the tree, for it to transition from season to season, I mean, it just perseveres.
Mm-hmm.
But then the season, the external changes, like the sun comes out, the temperatures go up. So there's stimuli that's created in the environment that causes the tree to come out of dormancy and begin to spring up new life. Do you think that correlates with our lives in any way?
Oh, of course. It's almost like when you just said that, it feels like, yeah, the external stimuli triggers a message in the tree, like it's time. Now we do this next thing. Like something in us is triggered by what's around us. I was telling my wife this morning at coffee, I'm like, we all go through stuff and we all have struggles and we've all done, like, no one's exempt. And maybe the 1% of Americans don't, whatever those people are, but we all struggle. But I said, as long as you have hope of that next season coming, then for sure it's not going to stay this way. And I think most people can endure anything as long as they know it's not going to stay this way.
Yeah.
But I think what we said earlier, we were talking earlier about joy and happiness. There's got to be I know I'm weird, but there's one tree deader, looks deader than a doornail. I guarantee it's alive and well. But there's another one, a neighbor friend of his, it's already blooming. So the dead tree can't compare itself to the one that's already blooming because they're in different phases of the season. And
Yeah.
so there's just a lot of correlation. Like I'm sure this little poor dead twiggy looking tree is like, what the heck? When's it my turn? Right?
Yeah.
It's like
100%.
I can see the other guy. We got whatever those blossoms are, apple, whatever you call them. They're blooming. They're red. They're beautiful. They're blooming all over. This other dude is just looking a hot mess, like nothing's going on.
Right.
But he
But
is
when you-
living in the confines of the season that God's ordained for him,
Yeah.
and he'll make it. I think he would make it more successful or easier if he quit comparing his dead, no branch looking self to the one that's blooming.
Beautiful blossom tree. That's really good. That's really good.
It's a matter of comparing ourselves. I don't know, but
I'm sure that has something to do with it, because that's what we do when we're dormant, right? And we're in the dead of winter. We start looking at everybody else that isn't. But here's a thought I had too when you were talking about being in the dormancy and of winter and all that, and why it's so important not to get stuck there. And once again, I can speak from experience, is that in that season, if you stay there, that is where really bad decisions get birthed. Almost always.
like what? Give the listeners some examples of personal decisions or.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You're living in a dormant state. You're fighting hope. You're trying to cling on to hope. You're not sure when spring is coming, so to speak, to use that metaphor. So you feel dead. And so to feel alive again, to find our joy, our peace, something that makes us happy, we'll end up doing something that is artificial. In other words, it's not something that benefits us, but we'll go do something, artificially. A lot of people have affairs during this time, right? Or they'll reach out to the opposite sex in communication. They're looking for something to make them feel wanted, alive, and joyful again, because they're living in this dormant season.
That's good.
Which I really like what you said. God ordained it probably for introspection and growth, so that when it is time to spring forth, because we'll just keep going with your metaphor. I love it. What happens, because I got a lot of trees in my property.
Yeah.
What happens in the spring when that tree sprouts? It doesn't just grow back to the size it was the previous year. A branch that was this big last year might be this big this year. And it might grow 10 feet taller. And when it's full summer, like if the tree had the voice, it says, hey, look at me. I'm 10 foot taller than I was last year. I'm doing pretty good. And that's how we feel when things go our way.
Yeah. So you can't measure your success in the season you're in.
There you go.
That's why there's rings on the tree, because it grows. It's like the human body. It restores itself when we sleep, not when we're working. That makes perfect sense. But I want to ask you this question, which sounds dumb. It sounds like a Jesus question. What tree that you know that didn't make it to the next season? What tree do you know of that said, yeah, I'm not going to stay here in the winter? I know it's spring, but
I see what you're saying.
I'm just going to hang out here for a while. What tree do you know you've ever seen that's still alive? It's like, yeah, I know I'm going to
skip this summer. Yeah, I'm just going to skip the summer. It's too much work to put leaves on this year. I'm just going to. We all know there is no such thing, because you can't. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're just not in as much control as we think we are.
But I do believe you can stall out in a season and you can get stuck in a cycle and
Yeah.
it'll keep you there until you I believe you can put yourself in that place. I can stay in this poor, pitiful, no leaf state if I choose to.
Yeah.
But it takes more work to do that than it does to just keep moving with whatever God has for you. Like I tell myself these things. These should be good questions for people to mantras. Like I don't care what season I am, seasons change, and I'm gonna change with it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what it looks like. And then I
Yeah.
can look back over my life, which would be the rings of the tree. And the rings inside the tree are proof that year after year after year after year after year, God has been faithful to bring me out of the winter season, year after year after year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. A good example of that is, think about, I wish we would write these down. Like, what is my biggest concern? If I'd have wrote that down 3 years ago, what is my biggest concern in this moment? 3 years later, I probably wouldn't even remember it. And so, but in the moment, those concerns, those challenges, life's circumstances, the storms of life, it feels like there's no hope at times. And there's times as we talk about leading ourselves, there's times that we don't feel like encouraging ourselves. We're just tired of the storm. And I think this is like goes back to our 911 friend thing. Like when you find yourself in that place, you've got to reach out to somebody because it's your community, your friendships, hopefully your spouse. That's going to be the encouragement to get you through. I know a lot of people we speak to have relationship issues and problems, and they don't feel that their spouse is helpful in these types of situations. And so I think it's important, Mark, that they have somebody they can go to say, hey man, it goes back to being vulnerable. Man, I'm struggling. I feel stuck. I feel like I'm going to be in the dead of winter for the rest of my life.
yeah.
But I want to key in on something that kind of came to mind when you were talking. And I think this is what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. But like when we talk about the environment changing so that spring comes and the tree blooms and all that, what part do we play as far as, do we need to do something from a change perspective for ourselves in order to help ourselves out of those places?
I see what you're saying. I think the season will prune you and prepare you for the next season.
Okay.
One reason. Because all the leaves fall off, but all the bad ones do too.
Yeah.
So that winter season is a cleansing. It's a season of deconstructing, and then also, I think, there's a preparation gift of grace in our life to get into the next season. The long and story short of it is a mystery because it's all about the grace of God.
Yeah.
But the paradoxical answer is, Paul said, I am what I am by the grace of God. I know I am. But he also said, same breath, that this grace bestowed upon me was not in vain, but I labored more than all of you. Not me, but the grace in me. So I used this grace, but I still did the work I had to work. But it was still grace. But I still did the work. Like it's a never ending, I don't know if there's really an answer, but I know some people would say a tree just has to be a tree. But a butterfly has to do what a butterfly does, but he still has to fly. But it's the grace of God. It's ordained of God. He flies, and God created the flower, but he still had to fly. Like the whole creation it's not working, but it is working. He says, which sparrow did not go hungry? Well, they didn't. God fed them, but they still had to fly down and get the worm out of the ground. So it's like it's a, some writers call it, there's a rhythm of grace to it. And I think what we have to do is settle our mind and understand what season we're in, and know that the season's going to change, and I'm going to be prepared to do whatever was required of me in this next season. But it's not on me to do it, but it's on me to be participant in it. That's a better word. To participate in the work of whatever we're doing. I guess that's what
Yeah. Where does awareness fit into that?
awareness is huge, because I meet people every day, all the time, that feel like the winter season is the last season of their life. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Right.
There will be a better day. I've lived a long time. God always comes through.
Yeah.
I don't know how. And awareness is knowing that I know this next season is coming. No matter what I'm going through right now, it won't be the same. It's going to change. And then awareness, but honestly, we don't use our winter season. I think winter season is a pruning season. And we don't, that's why, there's winter, and in the early church, they do Lent and Advent. They fast for 40 days. So 80 days out of the year, the Orthodox church fast. And that's part of pruning. That's like moving in different seasons. It's like prune, season of wealth and health, prune, season. It's like the seasons all work together, like seed time and harvest and all that. So I wanted to ask you, in this metaphor, how, I think it's what you're asking me is awareness playing. I would word it like this: how do you not get stuck in the season you're in right now, and how do you transition? How would you coach yourself to transition, or the guys listening, to transition into the next season?
That's a really good question. The first thought that came to my mind from a transition perspective is I have to be aware enough to be looking for it. I got to have my eyes open and my ears open to know that, okay, I'm not where I want to be, but where is the grace of God to get me to the next season? What is he saying? What does it look like?
Mm-hmm.
And is this it, or is that it? Like, I'm having awareness. But like listening to you talk, I don't think we chase the season, we let the season come to us. But if you're not aware of the signs and of the times and of the season changing, you act like it's winter when it's full-blown summer.
That's what I was going to say. That's right. And you never get the benefit of the season you're in.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
That's stuck.
What a lesson.
That is called being stuck. And we've all been there at some time or another. So no judgment from us, but that is being stuck. So yeah, I think if our listeners they feel stuck, but I don't think you work your way out of it, but you're I really like what you said. The grace of God does it, but you're led out of it. You don't work your way out of it. You're led out of it, but being led out of it might require work, right? So
exactly. The paradox.
It's a paradox. So in fact, being led out of it, I can pretty much promise you will require work on your part. So, but you're not chasing the end result. You're being led to a new season with new opportunities, a new outlook, new perceptions, new hope, new joy, new peace. you know, everything feels alive again. And we all know what that feels like. I mean, every person that's married on this planet, when you first met your mate and knew she was the one or he was the one, that's how you felt.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that's turned into being stuck in the relationship. And we're saying there's grace to live a different life.
And it's grace is a requirement to move to the next season. And it's going to pull you there, whether you believe you're in it or not.
Yeah.
When you said that, it made me think of maybe there are trees. Like, what would keep us from enjoying the next season of our life? And it's the scars of the past that we can't let go of.
Yeah.
It just keeps us from enjoying. We're going to go to the new season. If you don't, it's because you won't let go of what happened in the last, right?
But isn't pruning painful?
Oh my God.
So like a tree, naturally a tree gets pruned by the wind. And we had a pretty big windstorm several months ago come through our place, and there's like big limbs laying in locations, and that's fallen off of really large trees. But I'm sure that tree doesn't say, "Man, that was painful. I'm not gonna bloom out next year." No, you know what it does? It grows a new growth right where the break was.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, "No, I'm going to replace the old with something new." And I think that's kind of what you're talking about is we've got to let that process happen, and not get stuck in the old wounds. But they're always there, even I love this, talking about a tree. Even a tree, you'll see knot forms on a tree where a limb was broken.
Mm-hmm.
But yet still you can get a new growth will come out of that similar location, not exact, but really close to it. But it still has a scar from the break.
I think a lot of us have scars from our trauma, but we don't accept the healing part. In other words, in the golf course where we walk the dogs all the time, years ago there was a beaver. You could tell because he had a big old swath that he just chewed all the way around.
Yeah.
But true story is, you can still see. I've been here 12 years. You can still see where he chewed it, but that tree comes back every season of his life.
Yeah.
So what he went through did not change what he was predestined to be.
Yeah.
But you could still see what happened to him, the tree. And so sometimes I think our traumas are nothing more as a reminder and a reflection of what we've been through. And obviously, I don't want to belittle it because God knows I got my own issues. But we can't let that say, well, that's going to not get us to the new season.
Yeah.
I just want people, I just want people to walk in joy. I think the whole world is trying to learn how to be happy. But I think the scriptures teach us joy, and they're not always the same thing.
Mm-mm.
Speak on that for a minute. We talked about it earlier.
Well, I think joy is something within, and happy is almost an external emotion. That's why I'm happy when my team wins a game. But joy is what I wake up every morning with. So joy comes from the soul, comes from the pit of our emotions and our being. Happiness to me is it's an external thing. And that's why it's so temporary. But yet many people will live their life in a way that they just move from one external stimuli to the next, looking for happiness when the joy isn't present inside. And Mark, talking about that trauma and those scars and the pain of the past. I mean, those are certainly honest, honest situations and honest realities of why joy could be a struggle for many people, just simply because those places aren't healed yet. Because until they're healed, you're still living in that moment of that pain and that hurt or that trauma, whatever it is that happened to you. It still feels like it was yesterday, even though it was potentially years ago.
So does that affect, because based on what we talked about, the grace of God's going to pull you into your new season. So if you're still healing from some effects from your traumatic experiences, is it possible that God will keep pulling you through the new season, even though while you're working on the other part?
Yeah, it's a
Like
process.
not leaving you behind.
He's not leaving you behind. The only person that can leave you behind is you. I mean, if you dig in and go, no, I'm not going to do, like we said, we have to cooperate. There's work involved. The moment we say, I'm just going to live in my misery, I'm not doing any work, I'm not trying, then no, he can't pull you. But if you're trying, regardless of what it looks like, Mark, the message is a message of hope. If you're trying, I don't care what everybody around you says. I don't care what your family, your friends, your neighbors, I don't care. If your heart is putting effort out, I don't care where you're at, there is a hope for a new season.
It's almost a guarantee if you don't sabotage yourself and stall out.
Yep.
Almost hate to say that, but it's true. And
Yeah.
he said, Genesis 12, I think he said, as long as the earth remains, there'll be seed time and harvest in all the seasons, and they'll never cease. Yeah. What I get out of seasons of my life is because of the seasons around me that I live in, it tells me supernaturally that no matter what I'm going through, it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
That gives me a great deal of hope.
Yeah.
But sometimes, some people get so stuck in their seasons that they've never really taken the time to be thankful for the changes. So in their brain, they're still living in winter no matter what season they're in.
Yeah.
It's a really cool subject, but I want to bring it back to where we started because I feel like I want to make everybody clear, like, the subject matter is, what do you do when you get tired of leading yourself or leading or being in charge? And we ventured off into seasons, but I guess that's really what it's like, isn't it?
Yeah. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to feel those things. We just don't want to get stuck in them. We got to allow the grace of God to pull us to the new season. But I think in the interim, it's okay for us to take a time out, refresh ourselves, step away, recharge, phone a friend, do something that's enjoyable, just to get through those moments. I think that's okay too. But
I think Genesis was the helpmeet. I get misunderstood a little. I was raised to think that the helpmeet, Eve, was Adam's servant to help him. But I have soon to believe this last year and a half that Eve's job as a helpmeet is to always encourage Adam, no matter what season he's in.
Oh my gosh, Mark! I know we talked to a lot of men, but if we could just
if you give a man appreciation, affection, no matter what season he's in.
Right? It's so true. Maybe someday we can do a podcast on that, because women are holding the key that unlocks the man's motivation. for them to be everything they ever dreamed of. And they're holding the key to that lock, and they don't know it because it unlocks everything.
But
I'm convinced of
you
that.
don't know what you don't know.
But I mean, they're suffering from the same struggles we have, which is hurt and pain of the past, and trying to get being pulled to the next season through grace as well. So it's understandable, and there's history there. I mean, it's a complex subject. We try to put we get 30 minutes on a podcast. We're a little over today, but
we're
trying to
solve the problem of life.
solve life's problem in 34 minutes. But we want to get these concepts and thoughts out, and really what we want you to feel from us is a sense of encouragement that wherever you're at, you don't have to stay. That there is joy to be had. There is a season of life and a change that's coming, and you just have to persevere and all those things that we talked about. So we just want to be encouragement to those that are listening. But we feel you. We've been there.
Yeah. It ain't like we're not going to be there again, too. So.
Oh, right.
But it gets easier in your brain when you realize, yeah, this is going to change. It's not going to be this way forever. And you can kind of, David had to get to a place in his life he had to encourage himself.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the encouragement to yourself, is this is not going to last forever.
Yeah. But
God,
boy,
what do I do
when you
now?
have a community and a 911 friend and a wife that's blowing wind up under your wings, you can
do anything.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah. I agree. Well, Mark, I feel like we should wrap up this week's discussion. It felt like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts. What do you want everybody to remember from this podcast today? If they remember one thing, what would it be?
The season's going to change, and where you're at right now is not going to remain. So you should encourage yourself in that fact. And don't be afraid to be invited to be a participant in the grace that's given to you.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, we will end on those words of wisdom. And till next time, this is Breaking Biscuits. We love you guys. We encourage you. Can't wait to see you again. God bless.
Yeah. See ya.